Well, negotiators at COP28 finished up their first week in a more familiar place for them, the murky middle where momentum and roadblocks intertwine. Now negotiations on how the world can slash greenhouse gas emissions and stave off the worst impacts of the climate crisis will reach a fresh intensity over the next few days, with nations wrangling over whether to phase out or phase down fossil fuels. The key draft text is to do with the global stocktake. This is a requirement of the 2015 Paris Climate Agreement, a comprehensive assessment of the progress or lack of it towards the Paris goals of holding global temperature rises to well below 2 degrees Celsius, while also pursuing efforts to limit temperature rises to 1.5 degrees Celsius above pre-industrial levels. Within this text, the most contentious lines are over the potential phase out or phase down of fossil fuels. But as the text moves from the technical level overseen by civil servants to political negotiations involving mainly ministers, there is still little sense of what the landing ground of any compromise could be. Now it's up to global leaders to haggle over what the future should look like and whether there should be a commitment to phase out oil, coal and natural gas, as climate activists, many experts and some nations say, or something softer. Now, for further clarity on what to realistically expect, joining us, Linda Kalcher, Executive Director of Strategic Perspectives. Linda, thanks so much for making time for us. You know, India managed to get an outcome at the G20 when no one was really expecting it. But how do you see India's climate leadership growing, especially as India has repeatedly projected itself as the voice of the global south?
Thanks so much for the question. We hear that here in Dubai as well. So really when you walk the corridors, India is recognized as the voice of the global south. I think it's been really impressive what they've done with the G20 summit, especially the task force of reform of the multilateral development banks was a very important signal to make sure that the new industrial area where clean technologies play an increasing role is accessible for all countries and it's becoming affordable for all countries.
So do you think it's realistic and possible then, Linda, for India to transition to a zero fossil fuel economy?
I think it is. It needs to do it at its own pace and with its own priorities, but especially if you look at the global markets for clean tech growing, the sense of direction is clear. The clean technologies are becoming cheaper in many countries already, and we hope that that becomes increasingly the case for other countries. And I think that's where the financial reform that I mentioned initially comes back in, because we need to ensure that the benefits that come with it, the jobs that are getting created and the cleaner air and the investment and innovation is really accessible for all countries.
Right, just picking up on the financial reform aspect, you know, COPs have been seeing a stalemate on the finance discussions. Developing countries cannot transition fast enough without financial support, as you are aware. Linda, are there any new mechanisms to mobilize finance which are coming in? And how can countries like India access them?
I think the work they've done with the G20 task force has been really powerful. We've seen also the Paris summit this year by President Macron and Mia Mottley, who really said we need to ensure that the finance is flowing. And I think there are mechanisms that are getting broader, so we can look into de-risking, we can look into the role of banks, we can look into how to bring in the private sector more. I know that Prime Minister Modi is also really talking about the trillions and shifting the private capital, which is not to substitute the public investment, of course, but just because it's the trillions that we need and they need to be mobilized faster. So, and I think India is very well positioned to really benefit from these mechanisms and also ensure that there's constant progress and we move beyond the rhetoric.
Right, thank you so much for joining us with your comprehensive insight, Linda, into the final week of negotiations taking place at the COP summit. Let's hope we witness positive, concrete outcomes in Dubai.